The 30% permanent reduction isn't the most expensive thing that happens when you claim Social Security at 62. The most expensive thing is what that reduction compounds into over the next 2 decades, because every single cost of living adjustment you receive for the rest of your life is calculated as a percentage of the base you permanently shrank on the day you filed. Underneath that, there are 3 more damage layers. 2 are tax mechanics, written into law decades ago that the government has no particular incentive to explain, and one travels directly to your spouse and follows them into widowhood. Most people filing at 62 think they're making a timing decision. They're actually making 4 decisions simultaneously: a compounding decision, a survivor income decision, a tax architecture decision, and a Roth opportunity decision, all with a form that takes 10 minutes to submit and cannot be undone. In 2024, the Social Security Administration processed over 2 million new retired worker benefit applications. According to SSA published data, approximately 30% of first-time retirees filed at 62, the earliest possible age. Another 25% filed somewhere between 63 and 66. Less than 10% waited until 70. The overwhelming majority of Americans locked in a reduced benefit before ever reaching full retirement age. Some of those decisions were correct for those circumstances. Most were made with an incomplete picture. I spent months going deep on this. I read the SSA actuarial tables, mapped the provisional income mechanics across different claiming ages, ran Roth conversion math against real IRA balances. And what I found made me genuinely annoyed, not at the people who got it wrong, but at how well designed the confusion is. What I'm going to walk you through today is what I call the 4-floor framework. 4 distinct financial damage layers that stack on top of each other when you claim early. 2 are widely discussed, usually in isolation, which is why people miss the compounding effect. 2 are almost never discussed. I'll run actual numbers on each one, show how they interact, and give you a framework that maps to your actual life, not an actuarial average of everyone else's. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. They don't account for provisional income mechanics or Roth conversion opportunity cost. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard actuarial logic to expose the weak points in your specific plan. I only ask for your email to send you the report. I don't store any of your financial data. Link is in the description. Let's start with the floor. Think of your retirement income as a building under construction. Social Security, sized correctly, is supposed to be the slab, the foundation, government-backed, inflation-adjusted, longevity insured. It doesn't care if the market drops 40%, if your former employer restructures the pension, if your brokerage firm changes its fee schedule, the slab holds. Everything else you build on top of it, portfolio withdrawals, dividends, part-time income, is structure you add above it. When you claim at 62, you don't get a foundation poured at a slight discount. You get one poured 30% below where it could have been. And then you build everything on top of it. Every portfolio strategy, every withdrawal plan, every tax calculation you run in your 60s and 70s is sitting on a slab that was set before you understood exactly what you were setting. 4 floors to this framework. They compound, they interact, and they're almost invisible until you've already locked them in. Check the floor before you pour it. Here's what that means in practice. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you a tax mechanism written into law in 1983 that has never been adjusted for inflation, not once in over 40 years, and is now silently pulling roughly half of all Social Security recipients into taxable territory. But first, let me show you why the 30% reduction is even more expensive than the 30% number suggests. The first floor of this framework is the one everyone knows and underestimates: the compounding haircut. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. That's the SSA baseline. Claim at 62 and you take a permanent, locked-in 30% reduction on your monthly benefit for the rest of your life. Clean numbers. If your projected benefit at 67 is $2,000 a month, claiming at 62 gives you $1,400, $600 less every month, permanently. That $600 gap is the part most people understand. Here's what they underestimate. The cost of living adjustment COLA is applied as a percentage of your base benefit, not a flat dollar amount distributed equally, a percentage of your specific starting number. In 2023, COLA was 8.7%. In 2024, 3.2%. The 20-year historical average sits around 2.7%. So let's model the gap at 2.7% compounded annually. Year one, $2,000 grows to roughly $2,054. $1,400 grows to roughly $1,438. The gap? $616. After 10 years, $2,540 versus $1,778, gap, $762. After 20 years, $3,330 versus $2,330, gap, $1,000 per month and still growing. The permanent cut didn't hold at 30% in dollar terms. It compounded every year in the same direction. The floor you set at 62 doesn't stay 30% below the alternative. It drifts further below it with every passing year because you're starting the COLA multiplier from a smaller number. Now, I know exactly what some of you are calculating right now. I take the $1,400, invest it, earn returns on it, and outrun that widening gap. That logic sounds tight. Here's where it quietly falls apart. You think the problem is the reduced monthly check, but actually, the problem is what you're trading away to get it. A government-backed, inflation-adjusted, longevity-insured income stream is not an investment. It's an asset class, one unavailable anywhere else at any price. You're swapping a floor for a bet, and the bet has to perform consistently over decades, starting from the moment you have the least capacity to absorb a bad sequence of returns. There's a man named Gerald who retired in late 2007. He read the Invest the Difference argument, found it persuasive, claimed at 62 in January of 2008, and immediately directed his Social Security payments into a diversified index portfolio. By October of 2008, that portfolio had dropped roughly 40%. He wasn't sitting on paper losses. He was drawing from the portfolio every month for living expenses. He sold shares at depressed prices every single month because he had no alternative. His Social Security base was already set and wasn't enough on its own. When markets recovered through 2009 and 2012, he had far fewer shares left to participate in the rebound. The sequence of returns didn't cooperate with his model. It never does on demand. Sequence of returns risk is the single most underestimated variable in early retirement planning. You don't get to average the good years and the bad ones into a smooth line. You experience them in the order they arrive. And if the bad years come first, when you're drawing from a portfolio rather than building it, the compounding damage is disproportionate to equivalent damage that arrives a decade later. Wade Fall's research at the American College of Financial Services demonstrates that retirement portfolio outcomes are heavily determined by the decade you happen to retire into. You do not get to choose your decade. For some people, investing the difference is the right strategy. If you have substantial assets, genuine risk tolerance, and a shorter expected lifespan, the math can favor it. But the people who pitch this idea to me most enthusiastically are usually running it from anxiety, worried about Social Security's long-term solvency, tired of their job, uncomfortable with money sitting in a system they don't control. Anxiety is not an investment thesis. Check the floor. Make sure you know what you're giving up before you lower it. In a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the gap in the retirement calendar that most financial advisors don't discuss because it only fully opens if you haven't filed yet. But first, the damage that travels directly to your spouse and follows them into widowhood, because this is the floor that most people never even see on the blueprint. The second floor is the one almost nobody sees until it's too late, the survivor penalty. Social Security survivor benefits work as follows. When the higher earning spouse in a household dies, the surviving spouse can step up to receive the deceased's benefit if it's larger than their own check. The survivor keeps the bigger of the two numbers. That sounds clean. Here's the floor that most people miss. The benefit the survivor inherits is not the theoretical full benefit the deceased could have received. It is whatever number the deceased actually locked in when they filed. 30% haircut included. There's a man worth telling you about. Raymond spent 31 years as a manager at a regional insurance company in Ohio. Methodical. Kept spreadsheets on his retirement projections since his early 40s. Every year, he read the Social Security Trustees report. The 2016 edition estimated that the combined trust funds would be depleted by 2034, at which point scheduled benefits might be reduced to approximately 79%. Raymond looked at that number and made a rational decision. Lock in what's guaranteed now rather than wait for something that might not exist at full value. He filed at 62. His full benefit at 67 would have been $2,280 a month. He locked it in at $1,596. A $684 monthly reduction, permanent. Raymond had 11 good retirement years. He and his wife Linda traveled while they could. He coached youth baseball until his hip made it impractical. He did not regret the years he bought with that decision. Then Raymond died at 76. Linda was 73. Her own Social Security benefit from her own work record was $840 a month. Under survivor rules, she stepped up to Raymond's benefit instead, $1,596, not $2,280. The number Raymond chose at 62 was now Linda's number for the rest of her life, $684 per month, below what it could have been. Over 15 potential years of widowhood, $123,020 in lifetime income that disappeared because of a decision made 11 years earlier in response to a funding headline by a man who never thought of it as a decision that would outlive him. And then April arrived. Linda filed her first tax return as a single person. Her total income had dropped significantly from the prior year. She expected a smaller tax bill. Her preparer called with a number. She asked him to repeat it. It was higher. This is not a glitch. This is the widow's tax penalty, and it is structural. When Raymond was alive, they filed married, filing jointly. Larger standard deduction, wider tax brackets, more generous income thresholds governing Social Security taxability. The moment Linda became a single filer, multiple levers shifted simultaneously. The same income sources that were manageable in a joint filing context suddenly exceeded the tighter thresholds for a single filer. She earned less, she paid more. That's not an error in the system. That's the system working exactly as designed. CDC life expectancy data shows that women outlive men in the United States by roughly 5 to 6 years on average. The person most statistically likely to outlive you in a married household will live with your claiming age for potentially a decade or more after you're gone. The floor you set at 62 becomes their floor, 30% below where it could have been. For a decade, they didn't plan around. If you are the higher earner in your marriage, run one calculation before you file for anything. Take your full benefit at 67, subtract your reduced benefit at 62. Multiply the monthly difference by 12, then multiply by 15. That number is the range of lifetime survivor income difference your spouse faces based on your decision. Write it down separately from your own break-even analysis. Look at it separately. Some reasons for claiming early survive that scrutiny. Most don't. By the way, hit subscribe if this channel is delivering something useful. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may genuinely stop surfacing my content to you. That's not a guilt trip. That's how the recommendation engine works. Here's someone I want you to keep in the back of your mind through the rest of this video. His name is Dennis, 59 years old, electrician, 30 years of commercial wiring, the kind of career where your back accumulates specific opinions about what you're permitted to do on any given morning. He has a traditional IRA with $410,000, a small pension kicking in at 65, and a projected Social Security benefit of $2,400 at 67. His wife, Elena's own benefit is $970 a month. She's the lower earner in the household by a meaningful margin. Dennis has been seriously thinking about whether to claim at 62 or wait. He knows the 30% rule. He has a rough sense of the survivor benefit issue. What he hasn't seen yet is what happens in the space between stopping work and starting benefits. When he sees it, his entire timeline shifts. We'll come back to him. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The third floor of this framework is the one most advisors skip entirely, the golden window. Here's what nobody is telling you about the years between when you stop working and when you start collecting Social Security. Those years are not a waiting room. They may be the most tax-efficient years of your adult life. And most people accidentally give them away by doing the thing that feels financially responsible, filing early so they have income. Under the Secure Act 2, signed into law in December of 2022, required minimum distributions from traditional IRAs and 401ks don't begin until age 73. So here's the gap this creates. Stop working at 62 or 63. No salary income, no Social Security income, no forced withdrawals from retirement accounts. For potentially several years, your taxable income is lower than it's been at any point since your early career. Planners call this the golden window. The name fits. In 2025, the 12% federal income tax bracket for single filers runs from roughly $12,000 up to $48,000. For married filing jointly, approximately double those thresholds. And below the threshold, for the 15% long-term capital gains rate, qualified dividends and long-term gains on appreciated positions face zero federal tax. Two tools become genuinely powerful inside this window. First, Roth conversions. Moving money from a traditional IRA, where every future dollar withdrawn in retirement is taxed as ordinary income, into a Roth IRA, where it grows tax-free and qualified withdrawals are never taxed again. During the golden window, if your income is low enough, you convert at 12% federal. You pay a known, manageable tax now on your own schedule. You eliminate the tax burden on every dollar of future growth in that account. Roth accounts carry no required minimum distributions during the account holder's lifetime. None. Ever. Let me run Dennis through this. He retires at 63. His pension doesn't start until 65. And at a modest level, he delays Social Security until 67. In those first 4 years before the pension arrives, he converts $45,000 per year from his traditional IRA to Roth, staying within the 12% bracket given his income picture. Federal tax on each year's conversion, roughly $5,400. 4 years total, $21,600 paid in taxes. In exchange, $180,000 moves into a Roth IRA. At 7% average annual growth over 15 years, that $180,000 becomes approximately $497,000. Tax-free. Every dollar, no required minimum distributions. And critically, it does not appear in the provisional income formula that determines how much of his Social Security gets taxed in his 70s. It's invisible to the formula because he already paid the tax at 12% on his schedule during a window he controlled. If that same $180,000 had stayed in the traditional IRA, every withdrawal in retirement would be taxed as ordinary income, likely at 22 to 24%, given his full income picture in his 70s. The difference in after-tax wealth between those two paths, conservatively estimated, exceeds $100,000. Built not from a higher income or a risky bet, but from paying taxes strategically at a time when taxes were cheap. The second tool is tax gain harvesting. If your taxable income during the golden window falls below the 0% threshold for long-term capital gains, you can sell appreciated positions in a taxable brokerage account, realize the gains at zero federal tax, and immediately repurchase the same assets at a higher cost basis. The IRS wash sale rule applies to losses, not gains. You can sell and repurchase immediately without restriction. The result? Future gains from the reset basis will be smaller, meaning less tax when you eventually sell during higher income years. Almost no one talks about this in a retirement planning context. That's precisely why it's still available. Now, here's exactly what filing for Social Security at 62 does to this calculation. The moment Dennis claims, he adds roughly $16,800 of Social Security income annually to his picture $1,400 per month at the reduced rate. That income immediately narrows his conversion headroom. Every dollar of Social Security income is a dollar pushing him closer to the edge of the 12% bracket. Instead of converting $45,000 annually, he might convert $30,000. 4 years, $120,000 converted instead of $180,000. The difference in future tax-free wealth from that single filing decision, significant, compounding, and entirely preventable. The golden window doesn't appear on the SSA website. It has no calculator on any government portal, and it starts closing the moment you file. Check the floor, then check what it does to the window above it. The standard break-even calculator assumes identical health, identical spending, identical tax rates, and a constant investment return for the rest of your life. It also assumes implicitly that you'll be equally enthusiastic about spending money at 79 as you were at 62. Other than those minor assumptions, completely accurate. Stay with me, because this next part is where all 4 floors connect. What I'm about to show you has been sitting in the tax code, unchanged, for longer than most of you have been filing tax returns. The 4th floor, and the one that compounds the damage from the other 3, is the tax torpedo. The lower thresholds governing Social Security taxability, written into law in 1983. The upper threshold, the bracket that makes 85% of your benefit taxable, was added a decade later in 1993. Neither set has ever been adjusted for inflation, not once. Because wages have risen, because Social Security benefits have grown with COLA adjustments, because traditional IRA balances have compounded forward over 4 decades while the thresholds have stayed exactly where they were. Inflation has done the legislative work automatically. Every year, more retirees drift into taxable territory without Congress doing a single thing. Here's the formula precisely. Provisional income equals your adjusted gross income plus any tax-exempt interest you receive plus 50% of your total Social Security benefit for the year. Add those 3 numbers together. That total determines how much of your Social Security is exposed to federal income tax. For single filers, below $25,000 in provisional income, 0 Social Security is taxable. Between $25,000 and $34,000, up to 50% of your benefit becomes taxable ordinary income. Above $34,000, up to 85% of your Social Security is taxable. For married filing jointly, below $32,000, none taxable. Between $32,000 and $44,000, up to 50%. Above $44,000, up to 85%. In 1983, those lower thresholds captured roughly 10% of Social Security recipients. Today, SSA data and Congressional Budget Office analyses indicate approximately 50% of recipients pay federal income tax on their benefits. That percentage climbs every year without Congress touching a single number. Inflation raises your benefit and your IRA balance. The thresholds sit still. You drift into taxable territory by doing nothing except continuing to exist and compound. This is what planners call the tax torpedo. I think torpedo is slightly too dramatic for something this slow. This is more like rising water, quiet, structural, increasingly expensive with every year you haven't addressed it. Here's the interaction that makes it genuinely punishing. And this is the part that surprised Linda when she called her tax preparer. When your provisional income is already above the 85% threshold, meaning 85% of your Social Security is already being treated as taxable income, each additional dollar of income from a traditional IRA doesn't cost you tax only on that dollar. It can simultaneously drag more Social Security income into the taxable column alongside it. In that zone, your effective marginal tax rate on traditional IRA withdrawals can be substantially higher than your stated bracket. $1 of IRA income in, effectively $1.85 of taxable income generated until you've exhausted the calculation's upper bounds. People who save responsibly in traditional accounts for 30 years sometimes face retirement tax bills that look wrong. They weren't reckless. The architecture was working against them before they understood how the architecture was built. Now here's the Roth conversion connection. $1 in a Roth account does not appear in provisional income. It does not appear in adjusted gross income. It does not count toward the formula that determines how much of your Social Security gets taxed. From the IRS's perspective on this specific calculation, Roth income is invisible. Every dollar you move from traditional to Roth during the golden window is a dollar that cannot participate in the torpedo. You pay tax on it at 12% on your timeline during a window you controlled. Now it's free. Raymond left his traditional IRA untouched through 11 years of retirement. His Social Security and a modest pension covered their expenses comfortably. No particular reason to draw the IRA down. When RMDs arrived at 73, his account had compounded substantially. His mandatory first withdrawal exceeded $20,000. Combined with Social Security income that had been growing with COLA for over a decade, his provisional income moved above the $44,000 joint threshold. 85% of his Social Security became taxable. Every subsequent year, as the distribution period shortened while the account kept compounding, the RMD grew and the torpedo deepened. Then Linda became a single filer. The $44,000 threshold dropped to $34,000. Her total income fell. The threshold fell faster. The same sources that were manageable jointly now exceeded the tighter single filer threshold at a lower income level. She paid more tax on less money. 3 floors converging simultaneously. The reduced survivor benefit from his early claiming, the widow's tax penalty from the filing status shift, and the provisional income formula pulling more of that already reduced benefit into taxable territory. Each one is predictable in isolation. Together, they compound. And all 3 trace back to one filing decision made at 62. Dennis ran his numbers across all 4 floors. If he claims at 62, Elena's potential survivor benefit locks at $1,680 per month instead of $2,400, a $720 monthly gap she might carry for 15 or more years after he's gone. He narrows his Roth conversion runway, moving $120,000 instead of $180,000 over 4 years, losing meaningful after-tax wealth to taxes that could have been managed during the golden window. His traditional IRA balance stays larger, generating bigger RMDs at 73, pushing his provisional income higher, making more of his Social Security taxable in his 70s and 80s. Each damage layer is connected to the same claiming decision. Dennis decided to delay to 67. He also found 3 days a week of electrical inspection consulting his back could manage. It covered basic expenses during the golden window without requiring IRA draws for daily living. The delay didn't feel like waiting. It felt like transitioning out instead of stopping cold. The floor he sets at 67 is $2,400. Elena's floor, if she needs it someday, is $2,400, not $1,680. That difference, $720 a month, is a decision Dennis made at 59 before he turned 62, before it was too late to make it. Check the floor. That's the framework. Check every floor before you pour any of them. The provisional income thresholds were set in 1983 and 1993 to capture a modest fraction of Social Security recipients. They now capture roughly half. The federal government finds this arrangement financially convenient and has no particular plans to change it. You're welcome. Now let me put all 4 floors into one realistic situation with actual numbers so you can see how the damage compounds across a single person's retirement. Carol is 62. Single, former office manager, left work in early 2026. She has a traditional IRA with $320,000, a taxable brokerage account with $65,000, and no pension. Her projected Social Security benefit at 67 is $2,100 a month. At 62, $1,470. Scenario 1. Carol claims at 62, she receives $1,470 monthly, $17,640 annually. She draws $12,000 per year from her traditional IRA to supplement her provisional income calculation. $12,000 in IRA draws plus 50% of $17,640, which is $8,820. Total provisional income, $20,820. Below the $25,000 single filer threshold, zero Social Security taxable, low effective tax rate. From the outside, it looks like she navigated the system well. But the IRA compounds forward. Over 11 years, ages 62 to 73, drawing $12,000 annually from an account growing at 7%, her traditional IRA reaches approximately $390,000. Her required minimum distribution at 73, using the IRS Uniform Lifetime Table distribution period of 26.5 years, roughly $14,700. Mandatory, non-optional. Her Social Security at 73, with COLA at 2.7% annually applied to her reduced base from 62, is approximately $19,800 per year. Provisional income at 73, $14,700 plus half of $19,800, which is $9,900. Total, $24,600. She's at the edge of the torpedo zone at 73, and in subsequent years, as the RMD grows because the distribution period shortens while the account continues compounding, she crosses into it. More of her Social Security becomes taxable. The exposure grows automatically without her doing anything different. Scenario 2. Carol delays to 67. During the 5-year golden window, she draws from her taxable brokerage account for living expenses and converts $30,000 annually from her traditional IRA to Roth, staying comfortably within the 12% bracket, 5 years, $150,000 converted. Federal tax cost, roughly $18,000 total, about $3,600 per year. Her traditional IRA at 67, after 5 years of $30,000 annual conversions on a compounding base, approximately $175,000 remains in the traditional account. At 73, 6 additional years of 7% growth, roughly $248,000. Her required minimum distribution at 73, $9,350. Compare that to $14,700 in scenario 1. The difference in mandatory taxable income, $5,350 less per year every year, growing as the gap between the two IRA balances compounds forward. Her Social Security at 67 is $2,100. By 73, with COLA, approximately $2,490 monthly or $29,880 annually. Provisional income at 73, $9,350 in RMDs, plus half of $29,880, which is $14,940. Total, $24,290, just below the $25,000 threshold. Zero Social Security taxable versus the approaching torpedo zone. In scenario 1, her Roth account, $150,000 converted, growing for 10 years at 7%, reaches approximately $295,000, tax-free. It does not appear in provisional income. She draws from it without affecting her Social Security taxability at all. Add the monthly benefit difference across 18 years from 67 to 85, $630 more per month in scenario 2, multiplied by 12 months, multiplied by 18 years, $136,080 in additional lifetime Social Security income. Add the provisional income tax savings from having less exposure to the torpedo zone over a decade and more. Add the after-tax value of $295,000 in Roth versus equivalent traditional IRA withdrawals taxed at 22 or 24%. The aggregate difference in after-tax financial outcomes between these two scenarios is not marginal. It is the kind of number that, if Carol had seen it clearly at 62, would have changed the decision. 3 practical takeaways. Specific, not generic, calibrated to exactly this decision. First, calculate your golden window timeline before you think about your claiming date. Figure out how many years exist between your expected retirement date and age 73. Then, calculate the maximum Roth conversion you can execute annually within the 12% bracket, accounting for whatever other income sources you'd have during those years. If filing at 62 narrows that window enough to cost you $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 in after-tax Roth wealth, compare that cost directly to the early claiming benefit. That calculation, not the break-even calculator, is the one that actually maps to your tax picture at 80. Second, if you are the higher earner in a married household, run the survivor benefit scenario as its own standalone financial model before you file for anything. Take your full benefit at 67, subtract your reduced benefit at 62, multiply the monthly difference by 12, then multiply by 15. Write that number down separately, not next to your own break-even analysis separately. Some reasons for claiming early survive that scrutiny. Most don't hold up once you've seen the number clearly. Third, model your provisional income at age 75 before you file. Take your current traditional IRA balance, project it forward at 6% annual growth, calculate the required minimum distribution using the IRS Uniform Lifetime Table for your age at 73, add it to your projected Social Security income with COLA adjustments applied, add 50% of that Social Security figure, and check where the total lands relative to $25,000 if you file single or $32,000 if you file jointly. If you're already above those thresholds, at 75 based on current balances, you have a structural tax problem arriving in roughly a decade. The golden window is how you fix it. After the window closes, you're rearranging furniture. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And the most expensive Social Security decisions almost never feel like decisions. They feel like math. Obvious. Already solved. That's exactly